Existence, as everyone knew it, has ended. Somehow, everything and everyone was sucked into a void. Both memories and physical things are just fading away. Those who are left are terribly forgetful. They and every other material thing should soon vanish, souls and all. In this fading realm of what was, it seems as if all will soon be lost. You play as a hero who's hanging on for dear life. He wants to stop this supposedly inevitable end. He's determined. To survive, he goes through a time loop, gradually restoring the land through the power of his own and others' memories. These memories are represented by card draws. New cards are often unlocked when buildings are constructed in your home base, called camp. However, constructing any buildings requires resources, and resources must be collected during expeditions to the world's map. The world map is just a loop, hence Loop Hero. The loop's a little different every time, but it's always a loop about this size. Using cards here will either create a spawn point for an enemy, produce different resources, or provide various boons. Some of these cards can be combined for mild, interesting changes to each other, such as farmers being turned into ghouls if you place the vampires too closely to them. A secret ending can also be unlocked through specific placement of cards, but I won't spoil that combo here. As you play Loop Hero, its story is gradually revealed, and it's surprisingly complex for such a deceptively simple looping, grinding game. This is why I tried to complete it, and did put many hours in. However, the gameplay's grind did eventually grind down my own patience. I'm going to explain what I thought about various rating categories as usual, but for this game, I think that someone's like or dislike is going to be all about the gameplay. In comparison, everything else just feels irrelevant, and I will be explaining why. Characters. The player character is more of a great hero than a fleshed out person, and that's fine. The game's focused on the mystery of everything, which was primarily shown through gameplay and on how the great heroes simply hoped to solve the problem of life itself fading away. So the side characters felt as they often do in retro games. They're just there to push the plot along, but they do so well enough, and they have some minor dialogue as they pop up. They work well in context, but I don't think they're to the level where someone would play this game just for the characters. Story. I got bored due to the gameplay, so I looked up the story's full plot at one point. I found a good, spoiler-filled summary on Wikipedia. But to keep things spoiler-free, I'll just say that I learned that Loop Hero does have an interesting story behind it. I also learned that there's a secret ending which can be achieved in Chapter 2, and I did give that a try. And I did all that because the story interested me, and I did play for several more hours once I learned the full story after becoming bored. However, it just wasn't enough for me. After a while, I just got too bored to want to continue, even though I knew the story was going to be good. Since I didn't play Loop Hero through to the end, it feels unfair for me to comment on the story in detail, to give spoilers, or even to rate it. After all, a good concept doesn't necessarily equate good execution, or it could be excellent throughout. So just be aware that the story does have a complex, interesting amount of detail. Based on what I did see for the first several chapters, it's better than what I'd expect for a retro, deceptively simple looking game. But as I said, I think whether or not someone will like the game all comes down to whether or not they like the gameplay. Because if you don't like the gameplay, then I don't think anything else is going to redeem the game. Personally, I just couldn't stand the grind. For me, it just wasn't that fun to begin with, and what entertainment there was gradually dwindled away. The big problems in the gameplay were with resource collection and point allocation. It just felt like a job to do the loop after a while, and ironically, there's even an achievement that compares it to having a job. To be fair, resource collection can often be a boring grind in games. Getting resources is par for the course. It's just that in this game, I thought it was intense. To progress, your home base, your camp, needs to be built up. Various stations there will give you healing potions, starting items, defensive bonuses, and other goodies on expeditions to the map. As chapters are progressed through, these boons become more and more important. Building things also unlocks some cards and classes. Meanwhile, further dialogue is also unlocked, which adds more story elements. But upgrading the camp takes a large amount of resources. It takes resources to make the building, and it takes more to upgrade the building. That's where the player's hours are spent. Requiring a large amount of resources forces the player to go on many missions. A mission is a set of loops around the track, but each mission has a resource cap which will be met after many loops. When that cap is met, then it's necessary to go again. By going again, you lose everything, gear included, and start over. You only have whatever's at camp. Everything outside of camp gets wiped because, thematically, this void universe always forgets when you're not actively trying to remember it. So So returning to camp causes the void to re-encroach. You could keep looping around after you hit the cap, but you'd get little or no benefit from doing so. It's generally safer to stop as soon as you beat the boss. This is because of a gambling style mechanic, which makes the repetitive grinding feel even worse. This is because of a gambling style mechanic wherein more loops equals more danger. Because of that, it's usually better to just stop and head back to camp after you defeat a boss. Difficulty goes higher as the loop number gets higher, which means it might be better to retreat and start over again when your resources get high, before you get the max amount of resources. This is because of how retreating works. Retreating to camp on the camp tile means that you keep everything. But if you click to retreat elsewhere, then you'll either lose 70% or 40% of your grindingly slow progress by doing so. Meanwhile, the combat itself is hands-off. It's on an auto-resolve system, yet you can't walk away from the screen and let the loops go. Instead, you have to sit and stare at your hero as he does everything. All you do is equip him, build things, choose a skill, and wait to see if you need to click retreat. You can't even choose when he consumes potions, which even caused an annoying death for me at one point. I was so annoyed that I hit Alt F4 really quickly so that the death wouldn't count. Equipping him is also a grind. When enough new gear fills these slots, then the older gear dropped is smashed. On a fast setting with many monsters dropping loot, this drop and smash cycle goes quickly. Plus, you have to inspect gear constantly because it's not clear which items are truly the ones you need. Gear isn't a simple matter because it comes in 4 overcomplicated flavors. There's normal gray, and then items get rarer and gain more stat categories: blue, yellow, orange. In that order, those are the rarities, with orange being the rarest. But rare doesn't mean better. I often found that orange was not automatically the best to equip because items get similar boon points, but then the rarer they are, the more they divide those points across extra stat categories. This makes mixing and matching to get what you want from random drops feel like an annoying game of dress-up to me. Pausing to examine gear felt more and more like a hassle rather than fun, mainly because stuff dropped so often, and what was better wasn't always clear, and it was a constant flow. You also do have to keep up, because if the enemy's stats all keep going higher and you are being conservative because you want to just boost certain things, you're gonna get screwed. I'm used to trying to maximize my equipment in RPGs, but the system here was simultaneously overbearing, tedious, and randomized. And if what I had been going for didn't drop, let's say I wanted to maximize evasion and attack speed, but gear kept giving one thing and not the other on an item, then that could require me to need to retreat and start over. After all, having abilities spread too thin isn't good, but there's not much you can do if you have poor luck with the drops. If you let a good piece of gear go since it doesn't match, but then everything else matches that let go gear, you're just gonna have to revise on the fly in an unoptimal situation and hope that gear keeps matching this new trend of whatever it is you switch to. Randomization also affects skills. Sometimes you'll want certain ones or need certain ones, but only 3 will pop up and you have to choose one, or 2 will pop up and the third option will be to see 3 new ones, so technically you'll have 5 to choose from. But sometimes you'll really want something combat oriented and you only get resource oriented stuff. I was also annoyed at some moments in the gameplay which seemed misleading because they seemed to drop quests but didn't. For example, this harpy bemoaned a lack of fields and was hostile to the player due to that, so I ignored the boost that would come from mountain placement and built blooming fields all around the harpy's mountains. But nothing came of it. Harpies still attacked the hero and were still angry despite my solving their supposed problems. I don't see the point in having an NPC complain that they want something, be able to give it to them, and then have completing their request not matter. After all, if it looks and sounds like a quest, it being nothing is pointlessly misleading for the player. Similarly, I thought that completing the entire map might matter. After all, we're talking about a game which is about forgetting and remembering. I thought that the heroes remembering a whole map would do something interesting, but all I got was an achievement. Overall, Loop Heroes gameplay felt like a phone or tablet games to me. Something dull, but okay to pass the time in a waiting room or something like that. It felt like a game that'd be best played in short bursts, here and there. However, Loop Hero is not currently available for phone gaming. It is on Switch right now though, so if you have a Switch, it might be better to take on a journey via the Switch. The look and the sound. I think it looks fine and sounds fine, so no problems there. Its retro style even gives it some charm. Its music and sound effects also fit it really well too. Nothing stood out as iconic to me, but it was still really good. Cost and time. I put in many hours over several days. I was playing Loop Hero sporadically here and there, but even that was feeling tedious. I figured, how much longer could it be? Well, according to how long to beat, A lot more. Since I was already bored after much less time, about 17 hours, and I'd beaten about 3 chapter bosses, I figured I'd played enough. I had no interest in beating more bosses and spending more time to do so, even though I knew it'd be quite doable with more time investment. Afterward, I also checked the usual price, since I'd gotten Loop Hero for free from an Epic Games giveaway. Loop Hero is normally $15 and about $5 on sale. I think a fair price point would be in the middle somewhere, and so the sale price is actually a good deal if you like the gameplay. Final thoughts. It's rated well on OpenCritic. Some people find Loop Hero's gameplay terribly addictive and fun. It seems clear that mileage varies because it's either going to hook a player with its grind or not. So I'm only going to rate it on the gameplay because what I experienced personally trumped everything else for me. For me, while it does have a good story, looks good, sounds good, and the characters might even become more developed later on, those positive factors just weren't enough to keep me playing it for several more hours than I already had. I just didn't like it overall due to its gameplay, which was a big deal for me. I didn't want to spend more of my free time that way. So giving it a neutral rating or better just doesn't fit with my own experience. Normally, I think a game's rating is a summary of all its component parts, but here, Loop Hero's focus is definitely on grinding, and so I have to focus my rating on that aspect as well. For that reason, I'm only rating the gameplay on this one, and everything else is just going to be an NA, because it's not really applicable.